All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in tonight for our Learn to Hunt virtual version of our Learn to Hunt Turkey course offered over Zoom and YouTube. We're excited to have you all joining us tonight. We've got a great group of panelists that are passionate about turkey hunting and all things outdoors, and they'll be with us here in just a few minutes to share what they've got going on. We've had over 120 people register for the class, and we know that we'll have a few more hopping on later tonight from all sorts of different interest levels and experience levels. Folks are interested in just getting outside, learning a new life skill. Maybe they're really interested in turkey hunting. And a lot of you all are interested in the meat processing, how to make that bird into a dish at home that you can serve your family and friends when they come over to visit. Lots of good reasons for you all joining us tonight. And hopefully by the end of tonight and next week, you'll have all the information you need to get you headed in the right direction. So again, we're really excited to have everybody join us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and I think our panelists have started their screen. So I'm going to make some introductions. Tonight we have Jim Coffey. Jim is with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. He's going to be covering some of the history and habitat information about these birds in our state and what's being done in terms of conservation. He's a passionate turkey hunter, got lots of good stories to tell, and even some of our other panelists are pretty excited to hear him speak. So we're lucky to have Jim with us tonight. Also, we've got Dustin Amy. Dustin is one of our conservation officers. He will be covering our regulations portion and going over some safety tips and concerns too with turkey season coming up just around the corner. So he'll be covering that part. And then we have Matt Smith. Matt is there in what I refer to as the den of all dens and joining his background there tonight, which is not green screen. That's a real room at Matt's place. So Matt is with the National Wild Turkey Federation. He too, all these gentlemen have helped us out with this course for the last 2 or 3 years when we've been able to do them in person. But we're excited to be reaching so many more people tonight via Zoom. So excited for all 3 of these men here with us tonight. We've got several people in the background also working to make sure questions are getting answered and technical expertise is being handled. They're part of the Iowa DNR's Hunter Ed Division program shop. So we're glad to have them with us. So for you all that are tuning in from Zoom, it looks like there's a little more than 50 of you here. We want to make sure that you all know how to properly operate your screen. So there are some things to keep in mind tonight. If you're on your device or if you're on your computer at home, if you take your mouse or move your finger along the bottom part of your screen, you're going to see a window pull up that's got a menu bar. You're going to see some items, specifically a Q&A feature and a chat feature. We want you to be using the Q&A feature tonight for any questions that you may have. Chat's designed for if you see someone else on it, you want to say, hey, how's your mom doing? I haven't talked to you in a few months. You can chat privately through that feature. Just make sure that you've selected that individual to talk to, and you're not talking to everyone about your business. But all questions we want you to use through the Q&A feature there. In that tab, we're going to have our staff and our team of panelists answering those questions, both behind the scenes and then ones that we feel like should be shared with everyone. We'll make sure that those get handled live tonight as well. If you happen to be tuning in from YouTube, if you're watching this through our live stream to YouTube, we're going to ask you to send any of your questions to one of our tech support specialists. You can send any questions that you have if you're watching from YouTube to Nicole Coney. Her email address is Nicole, Nicole .Coney, CONEY @dnr.iowa.gov. Again, any questions that you've got, if you're watching from YouTube, need to be sent to Nicole Coney. Again, email address to Nicole is Nicole, Nicole .Coney, CONEY @dnr.gov, iowa.gov. So why are we doing this? Why are we taking time out of our Tuesday evening to talk to you all about turkey hunting? And simple answer is this. We all love the outdoors. We love a good chance to get out in the field and spend time with family and friends. Lots of memories have been made for many of us during this time of year, turkey hunting with other people. And so that's a big part of our motivation. But outside of that, there is an overall decline as fewer and fewer people are getting out into the outdoors. There are fewer people fishing, fewer people hunting. And those programs do a lot to fund the conservation of the species, not only that we're going to be talking about tonight with the wild turkey, but all wildlife species, from your pheasants to your deer, down to your songbirds, and even the pollinators. All of those rely on critical wildlife habitat here in Iowa. And so as we are trying to recruit new hunters into that, when you purchase a license, when you go out and you buy some of the equipment that it requires to do these activities, there are federal taxes built into those that allow state agencies like the Iowa DNR to do the work that they do, to put the conservation officers in the field, to put the biologists and tech staff in the field, to be working out there, making sure that the habitat is not only being developed and maintained, but also protected, that laws are being regulated, and also to pay for educators, people like myself and the other folks that are helping in the Hunter Ed shop tonight to help deliver these programs. So your fishing and your hunting license, your turkey tags, all that goes to support programs like this and all the work that gets done on the field. And without hunters, we need hunters to make sure that those funds are still coming in. So we also are reliant on great agencies, non-government organizations, like the National Wild Turkey Federation. They're a big partner here tonight with Matt coming on and helping us. So I'm going to take a few minutes and Matt's going to take the ball from here. He's going to talk a little bit about this organization and what they bring to the table. Then I'll hop back on and be turning things over to Jim. Matt, floor is yours, sir.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. National Wild Turkey Federation is a national organization that promotes both habitat and hunting. We have chapters, local chapters. I'm the president of the local chapter in Des Moines. We have chapters all across the state, all across the state of Iowa, all across the country, who raise funds to purchase land and also provide habitat improvement and also try to create new hunters. Right here in central Iowa, we have a Connecting Individuals to the Outdoors program, which is a year-long program that helps people to connect with the outdoors. We do hunter safety early on. We do a turkey hunt, dove hunt, waterfowl, also pheasant hunt. It's all about teaching people the basics, but more importantly, creating an environment or a group of people that they can all work together, learn, and be, yes. Sorry, I'm nervous. It's like a lot of people watching. Anyway, we have this program has been in place for 5 years, and it's one of the things that Wild Turkey Federation supports is new hunters. So that's all I have, Jamie.
Sounds good, Matt. No, NWTF is a great organization. You all do so much, not only in terms of education. The CETO program in Iowa that you were just mentioning is a fantastic R3 model. It gets folks out, gets them introduced. You guys are doing some great stuff there. Let me ask you a quick question. If somebody watching tonight wanted to find out more about the National Wild Turkey Federation, I'm sure they could just go to your all's website. We'll probably get that up in the chat window here soon. What else could they do to become an active member? What are some perks of becoming a member of the NWTF organization, Matt?
If you go to the Iowa NWTF site, there's banquets. You know, the COVID's kind of screwed things up. We haven't been able to have many banquets, but we're starting to reintroduce banquets to the environment or the group. Our local chapter here in Des Moines is going to be April 3rd, but there's going to be banquets all this spring and throughout the rest of the year. You know, go onto the site, find a local chapter that's having a banquet and just go attend. You know, it's a $35 membership. That money goes towards the very things I was talking about, purchasing land, improving habitat, and introducing people to the outdoors. We've done the youth programs and we still have those. The Jake's programs for the NWTF are awesome, but really the what we need to have is engagement from people from the 18 to 45-year-old group, the people we've kind of lost. Most of the hunters, the reason hunter numbers are declining is most of us who hunt are old guys like me. We're aging, we're declining, and the younger folks between that 18 and 45-year-old group are not engaged in hunting. So what we're trying to do is draw them in, reintroduce them to the outdoors, help them recognize the amazing things that are available all parts of the state across. Iowa is one of the most awesome places, I think, to live and to hunt and to spend time outdoors. We fish, we kayak. All of us are with the Wild Turkey Federation. We don't just hunt turkeys. We hunt deer, squirrels, rabbits, pheasants. Until not too long ago, I had several hunting dogs that, chased pheasants and quail around. So it's all about engaging with the outdoors, spending time with family and friends, and enjoying the incredible resources we have here, and putting our resources, which are money, into the things we care about, so that the next generations can have that. My kids and my grandkids love going and doing the stuff I do, but there's a lot of people who've never been introduced to it. So it's all about putting our money in a place where we can help all of us as Iowans enjoy what we have to offer.
Great words there, Matt. Good job. I would have to agree. Iowa is a great place to do all those things. So I'm happy to be able to live there too myself. So with that said, Matt, thanks again. Thanks to NWTF for helping us out tonight. We're going to turn things over to Jim Coffey, who's going to be talking to us about habitat and the history of this very beautiful and majestic bird. They're just gorgeous birds.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it. I'm going to try to share my screen here and see if we can get that going. If one of you can all give me a thumbs up so I know that it's up and available to you. Jamie, can you do that? All right, thank you. So yeah, I want to introduce myself again. I'm Jim Coffey. I am the forest wildlife biologist for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. I'd like to thank Matt and everybody else for being here tonight as well to talk about turkeys. I learned a long time ago there's an old quote, I wish I remember who said it, but we support the things we love. And the outdoors is something that I've always had a passion for, and everybody here tonight does. And what we hope to do is pass some of that same passion on to new hunters, or reinvigorate some people that have stepped away from it for a while, and just get you reconnected again to what Iowa has to offer on a landscape. I'm going to try to keep my comments on time tonight. I tend to be a person that likes to get long-winded and tell lots of stories. So I've put together a slide presentation we'll go through tonight, but I certainly want to deviate from that whenever we have questions. I don't mind being interrupted and going down different paths if that's the direction it takes us, because I'm here tonight to help you answer the questions that you might have, and hopefully educate you a little bit along the way as we go. So I always like to start off with any talk that I give related to wildlife, especially with a little bit of history and biology. And in school, I really enjoyed biology, but I was not much on the history portion of life. And the older I get, I realize that history is a great part of what we do. It's our culture. It shows us where we've come. It shows us where we might want to go in how we manage our resources. And there has been a lot of history around the wild turkey in the United States and in Iowa specifically. Thing to remember about wild turkeys is that they were here prior to settlement. So Iowa became a state in 1846, but some of the early pioneers and the journals that were written shows ample wild turkey populations across the state. And of course, most of Iowa was tallgrass prairie, but we were intertwined with those riparian woodland habitats. And so we had lots of different species of wildlife. I always like to say that Iowa is in the best place in the universe. We're at the crossroads of the eastern deciduous forest, the tall grass prairie, the coniferous forest of the north, and the oak hickory timbers of the south. And we get the best of everything. We've got the best land in the world. We've got the best wildlife in the world, and we lost it. We absolutely lost it when we pioneered the state. It's well documented that as man came across the state of Iowa, wildlife essentially was extirpated, and the wild turkey was no exception. We had the last documented wild turkey in Iowa in 1910 in Lucas County. So we went from these super abundant populations in the late 1800s to 0 wild turkeys in Iowa by 1910. And that wasn't no one's fault. It was just the fact that we were exploiting the landscape and changing the landscape itself. We thought that wildlife was so abundant that it would never go away, just like the passenger pigeon and some of the other species. And what we know is that we impacted that habitat and we impacted those species. So we went over 50 years without wild turkeys in the state. My grandfather was born in 1912 and did not see a wild turkey until he was in his 60s and late 60s, early 70s. So those birds were reintroduced into Iowa in the mid 1960s with the expectation of that there would be a hope that we would be able to see a wild turkey on the landscape. And we tried several things. We were trying to reintroduce those birds. That didn't work. We tried to release pen-raised birds. They didn't have the wildness or the wariness to survive. We tried to release some birds from Nebraska, which turned out to be a different subspecies that we didn't know at the time because there was no such thing as a wild turkey biologist. And those didn't work. And so then we tried some trap and transfer, which is where we caught wild birds from other states that had the same subspecies, which is the eastern subspecies that we have. And when we released those into areas like Stevens State Forest and Shimmick State Forest and Yellow River State Forest, we started to see those turkey populations hold on. And that was our hope. We didn't even know if there would be a wild turkey season at some point. We just wanted to have them on the landscape for people to see and to realize that this was a species that used to be in the state of Iowa. But what we found out is that those turkeys did well. They did very well for the same reasons I talked about earlier, is that Iowa has this unique intertwining landscape. We have mature oak hickory timber, we have shrublands, we have pasture lands, we have croplands, we have grasslands, and turkeys really thrived at that. And early wild turkey biologists thought that turkeys needed 10,000 acres of contiguous timber to survive, and that was not the case. It turned out that Iowa had exactly what they needed. They needed space. They needed some places to go and roam, trees to roost in, habitats to brood in and raise their young in. And so those populations took off. They took off so well that in less than 10 years, we decided to have our first turkey season. And you'll see from those numbers, that was in 1974. We issued 300 licenses across the entire state of Iowa, of which there was only just a few places to hunt turkeys. In fact, you had to only hunt in one of the 3 big state forests at that time. Everything else was protected. And we had 103 people that were successful. So a third of our turkey hunters in that very first year were successful. And there's a lot of history that goes on with turkey hunting then. We progressed through the 70s and the early 80s. And I harvested my first turkey in 1978. So not too far long after that season was introduced. By the 1990s, we were allowing non-residents to come into the state of Iowa and hunt for very good reasons, is that we had Iowans that wanted to go to other states to hunt wild turkeys. So why should we be so arrogant that we could go to their state and hunt, but we would not allow them to come to our state and hunt? Especially since we would not have had wild turkeys if another state had not trapped and transferred them to our state. And then by last year, we had, such a unique year with COVID-19. We've been watching turkey hunter numbers kind of dwindle the last few years, as Matt kind of alluded to. We're all getting a little long in the tooth, a little gray haired, a little pudgy in the belly. The average turkey hunter in Iowa is aging and falling off, and we're not seeing a lot of new hunters come in, or maybe even some of those older hunters that have fallen off, not still hunting. But COVID last year really gave people an excuse to get back outside. And we saw a big insurgence of license sales. We had 58,000 people purchase turkey licenses last year. And we went from 300 licenses in 1974 to 58,000 last year. We harvested almost 15,000 birds last year. You know, this is a state, again, that a mere 50 years ago was going to be hopeful that if we had turkeys on the landscape for our residents to see. And something that's really exciting is the fact that we harvested birds in all 99 counties. Every county last year showed a bird registered across the state, which means that that's an opportunity that everyone has a chance to go out and enjoy. So I talked a little bit about eastern wild turkeys. And the reason I did that is because what we've found out over the years is that there's 5 subspecies of wild turkeys in the United States. And they're basically divided by habitat types. So the eastern wild turkey is the turkey you see in the blue here. It's found basically from the the Missouri River. If you drew a straight line up and down where the Missouri River is on the border of Iowa, back to the East Coast. And that's the subspecies that we have in Iowa. You see the yellow down in Florida, that's called the Osceola or Osceola turkey. And it has actually longer legs. It's kind of more adapted to living in the swampier country down south. It's a tall bird, but a small bird. The eastern is probably the biggest of all the subspecies. And then you move into the red area, that's the Rio Grandes, and they've been more adapted to dry country, and they do well in less timber, more open riparian areas. Then you see the Gould's turkey, which is in the yellow, which is mostly found in Mexico, but just ekes its way up into the Arizona border, only because the National Wild Turkey Federation made it possible for a trade between Mexico and Arizona to get that bird back into the Arizona drylands and desert areas. And then the Merriam's turkey, I kind of skipped it. It's kind of a transitional bird. It's what we tend to see out in Nebraska and a little farther west. Again, another dryland species bird that's found through much of the east central part of the west part of the United States. And then you see the Rios over out in California. Again, we're probably reintroduced into those areas. So just a little dynamics of the 5 subspecies that we have, but the eastern is the one that we have. It's the one that we enjoy the most. They all pretty much look alike. They all have their own little differences, but what you're going to find in Iowa is the eastern. So a little bit about that eastern wild turkey. Isn't he beautiful? You know, Jamie alluded to him. Man, he's ugly to some and beautiful to most of us. But I want to make sure, as we talk to especially new turkey hunters, us old turkey hunters sometimes gloss over the terminologies. And I want to make sure that we're all kind of have the same concepts as we go forward. So the male birds are often referred to as toms or gobblers. Sometimes they're referred to as fantails because we look to see that big fanning tail when they're strutting in the springtime. They're going to weigh about 25 pounds in Iowa, a nice heavy bird. But the state record bird is over 30 pounds, so they can get quite large. Females are just known simply as hens. Nothing special about that name. It's just the hen. It's the female part of the bird. But we do have a special name for the female young birds, those that are just born this year that won't quite be a year old by next April, May, when the breeding season starts again. We call those jennies. And just like we have the jennies, the young birds of the year, we have the male young birds of the year called jakes. So jakes and jennies would be this year's young, or the young that were actually born last year in May and haven't quite reached their first birthday yet. And you'll see that the females are quite a bit smaller in size, only 12 to 15 pounds on average. Difficult to see that in the field unless you see them beside a male bird, which would be quite large. But if you only saw one turkey out in the field, for many people, it's hard to tell the difference. So as we go through this presentation, we'll talk a little bit about some of those differences for you to look for as a new hunter. So when I talk about turkeys and turkey hunting, I always like to break it down to the biology a little bit. And the easiest way to talk about biology is our 5 senses. We have them, every animal has them, the wild turkey has them. So I always like to talk about the sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, because those are the things that wild animal is using to survive every day. It has to use every sense it has to be able to survive one more day, to produce one more clutch or brood of young, and to get past one more predator. So let's talk a little bit about those senses. And then as you progress as a hunter, you're going to start to figure out how to use some of those turkey senses in your favor as well. So sight, probably one of the best senses that the wild turkey has. Its eyes are considered to be monocular because they're on both sides of its head. It does not see binocularly like we do, which means that it can triangulate distance, but it sees monocularly, meaning it doesn't care how far away something is. It only wants to be able to see that movement. It has eyesight that's deemed to be about 3 times better than humans. And because they have that long neck, it's called periscopic eyesight. They can move up and down. They move that head back and forth. With their eyes where they're at, they see about 270 degrees at any one time. And of course, that neck's always moving. So essentially, they see almost 360 degrees around them. And like I often joke about, is a turkey doesn't care how far away you are, but if it sees you, it runs away. So as a hunter, we have to be very cognizant of those eyes. We don't want those eyes to pick us up because a turkey has lots of other places to go and it'll just run away. When it comes to sound, you can't really see it in this picture, and I'll try to point it out a little bit later on, but turkeys don't have external ears. They just have a little opening on the side of their head. And you would think of that they wouldn't be able to hear very well at all, but they have pinpoint accuracy. They know where that other call came from or where that noise came from, and they know exactly how far away it was. And as a turkey hunter, that we'll find out next week, is we have to use that to our advantage. One of the biggest mistakes that we make, and you'll hear it tonight and you'll hear it next week, is as turkey hunters, we call too often and we call too loud. And that sound, that pinpoint accuracy, can work against us if we're not aware of it. So taste. Do we care what a turkey tastes? Well, yeah, we do, because turkey's taste means that what they're going to eat. And if we know what a turkey's eating, in this time of the year especially, then we can try to put ourselves in situations where we'll be in areas where birds are going to be at. We know that they love acorns. That tends to be a fall crop. There may not be many acorns left this time of the year. But when we see turkeys eating this time of the year, they're eating lots and lots of fresh greens. Those first greens of the year, they want to be out there scratching them up, turning them over, looking for those first cold insects of the year, the grubs, whatever might be underneath that leaf litter. And so their taste is what they march on. They move to find food. Touch, that's more coming from their feet. So we talked just about their scratching. They scratch a lot. They turn things over to find that food. So when you're out there scouting and looking for turkey sign, when you see those woods are all scratched up, that's the touch component of wild turkeys. You're going to be looking for where they've moved those leaves and flipped them over. And smell is probably the only sense that's really limited in all birds and turkeys as well. And that's our only advantage, is that turkeys can't smell. Because it's been said many, many times, if turkeys could smell, humans would never get close to them. But what we have to remember is that turkeys and deer are buddies. They like to hang out together. And deer can smell very well. So we've got to be cognizant of how deer smell and how that will impact the turkey's behavior if those deer were to bolt away from us. Turkey behavior is something that's very interesting to me. And what we have to realize is it changes from season to season. And we're talking about turkey hunting right now. And that means mating. The gobblers, those winter flocks that we be seeing, these big groups of birds are starting to break up. About March 15th every year, the birds will break up and they'll move back out onto where they were situated in the landscape last spring. In many cases, the adult males will try to dominate their territories again. The adult females will try to move back to those areas where they're successful having nests. And so we're seeing this breakup of these flocks right now. And what we're trying to do then is take advantage of that behavior. Is as we have our spring turkey seasons, we're going to be acting like a female and trying to attract the male to us to take advantage of his prowess, of his wanting to breed. We're trying to trick him. What we know, though, is that there's safeties in numbers. As those birds are in those big flocks, that's lots of eyeballs that are looking for us. That's lots of ears listening for sounds. And again, a turkey's major way of escaping is to run away. So we have to be cognizant of all those eyes and all those ears looking for us. But as we move through that spring nesting season, each one of those hens becomes a little more isolated. She's wanting to go off and lay her egg. She's wanting to go off and incubate. And that leaves that gobbler a little more lonely and a little more isolated by himself and a lot more vulnerable. So we're going to take advantage of that behavior. Again, with that turkey behavior, we think about, it's a bird, it flies very well, but it's a big bird. It takes lots of energy to get off the ground. If you think about it, it's much easier to use those eyes and ears to detect a predator or detect something that's not right. and then either slink away or you'll never see it. I've talked to many turkey hunters that know that they've had turkeys that have seen them as hunters before they saw the turkey, and the turkey just disappeared. It just became a ghost. But if they're really spooked, they're going to run away, and they're going to run away quickly, and they're going to jig and jart back and forth because they don't know what's chasing them or what that predator object is that they couldn't identify. And if they're really spooked, or if they're too close, they're going to take advantage of those wings and they're going to fly. They're going to jump up into the air with those powerful legs, and they're going to fly, and they're going to pump those wings to get up through the treetops, and then they're going to lock their wings and they're going to coast, and they're going to glide, and they'll glide a quarter of a mile. And then when they hit the ground, they're going to put those legs into place, and then they're going to run another 300 yards. And so by that point, that turkey is well but gone. But it's amazing that they can fly, 50 miles an hour. They can fly as fast as a car going down a road, and that they can run 25 miles an hour, much faster than most predators that are out on the landscape. So something that's really important to us as hunters is we identify males and females. And we've all kind of got that concept of a male. Again, we think about that beard and that red head or the strutting bird that we see in the pictures. And we oftentimes forget that the hen, and I hope I don't lose my internet connection here, that hen is designed to be the opposite of the male. The male in this case for the species wants to be big and showy and shiny and everybody see me and look at me. But the hen's job is to be dull and subdued and blend into the background, because once she starts to incubate those eggs, she's going to be on the ground for 31 days, plus an additional 10 days while that brood is growing and getting ready to fly off of the ground. So for almost 50 days plus, that hen is exposed by staying on the ground. Traditionally, she's going to be roosting up in a treetop, just like the male is as well. And that provides a lot of protection. So what we're going to point out as we go through is some of the characteristics between males and females for identification. You'll see the male's red head compared to the female has more of a gray or bluish head, where the feathers go farther up the neck and actually kind of blend that in a little bit more. The males will have the beard. The beard is a very sexually dimorphic characteristic, but there are occasional females. About 5% of females will have beards as well. So it's important that you realize that a bearded hen, which is legal, or excuse me, a bearded bird, which is what is legal to shoot, or male bird, has to be identifiable. If you see a female bearded hen, a female bearded turkey, you could shoot it, but then you have to worry about your ethics. Do you really want to shoot a female bird? She's not as big. She's not going to provide you the same amount of food. And most likely she's going to be off having a nest somewhere. So if you were to harvest her, you would be essentially destroying that nest or that production of that bird for that year. So I talked about the males being big and shiny. One of the things you'll see on the males is their feathers are actually kind of tipped in black. And I've got a better picture later on here, whereas the female feathers are actually tipped in light brown. And we think about those feathers laying like shingles, that makes the males, all his black feathers show up, which makes him look much darker. And the females, that light buffy brown, they all lay together. That makes her look much more dull and subdued. So there's some pictures of some beards there. Again, some of the females can have beards, about 5%, but we tend to think of the male being the one that shows the beard the most. And then, of course, the beard grows as the bird grows. Those jakes, those young male birds, will have a beard that's not visible or barely visible through the length of the feathers. And that would be more like the beard on the right, the 3 inches, but it'll continuously grow throughout the turkey's life. And most turkey beards in Iowa average about 9.5 to 10.5 inches. It's a modified feather, so it's actually quite brittle. And as it gets to be about that long, it actually wears and breaks off. So it's very rare to get a turkey beard that's longer than 10.5 inches in Iowa. They can also have multiple beards. The standard is to have 1 beard per bird, but you'll see some turkeys that will have 2 or 3, maybe in 4, 5, 6, or 7 beards. Those are pretty rare, but it does occur. When we think of males too, we also think of the spurs. And those spurs tend to be the best way for us to get a decent estimate of the age of a turkey. A young male bird or a jake that's less than a year old will usually have a spur of less than 1/2 inch. And in this case, where you see that spur starting to get very pointed or curved, we start to call those limb hangers. That's the terminology, is that spur is actually so long that you can take that bird and hang it on a limb, and if the spur is curved enough, the bird will hang on the limb by itself, just by its spurs. And that tends to tell you that it's an older age bird. We as turkey hunters have to be very cautious about those spurs. The turkeys use them to fight with. It's one of their techniques for showing dominance over other turkeys, as well as wing flapping and neck twisting. But what we have to be careful about is when we do harvest a bird, that bird will typically go through what we call the death throes, or the last moments of life where the adrenaline is kicking in. The bird is dead, but it doesn't know it's dead yet. The heart is pumping. It's trying to get away from the predator. And I've seen many hunters reach down and grab that turkey by the legs, and it goes into that last few 30 seconds of death throes, and that spur will poke right through you as quickly as enough. You have to be cautious of that. Males and females, of course, the females are the ones that lay the eggs, and the poult is what we're hoping to raise on the left, because that's the next generation of turkeys that are out there on the landscape. I always like to point out what turkey eggs look like to people. They're a little bit bigger than a chicken egg, but very cryptically colored. They have that brown in there with them. Going to be 11 to 12 of them in a nest. It takes about 28 to 31 days to hatch, and about, again, 10 days before that poult can get up into that small branch off of the ground. Finding a turkey nest is a pretty unique sight. I've always encouraged people that, we shouldn't go out looking for turkey nests, but if you happen to flush a hen off of a nest in the springtime, she's going to run away. There's a chance she won't come back, but take advantage to look at that nest, observe it, and then don't go back to it, because it's going to take at least 28 to 31 days to hatch. So don't keep going back and checking on it, because if you keep disturbing her, then she will abandon that nest. And there's a chance that she will not try to nest again that year, and therefore she won't produce any birds. But what you see is that that's just not really much of a nest, is it? It's just a little bowl of leaves in the forest floor. And she will stay on that continuously. She'll leave a few times a day to feed, but she's committed to that nest on that ground and incubating for that full term, that 28 to 31 days. Males and females. This is one of the fun parts about going out and doing your scouting and looking around for turkeys. Is biologically, it's so interesting that hens leave a little plop of scat or poop, if you want to call it that, and the gobblers always leave a little line or a little J-shaped. So I often think of J for Jake or that young turkey, but males and female scat is different. And so when we're out scouting and looking around and hiking in the springtime, we can start to determine, are we seeing hens? Are we seeing males? And what we do know is most cases, if we find lots of hen poop, there's going to be a gobbler pretty close by. He's not going to let those hens get away from him. This is back to that feathers I was talking about a little bit there. On the left is the males, and on the right is the females. You can see those black tips. If you think of the feathers of a turkey laying down like the shingles on a house, you only see just a little bit of that feather at the end. So those males, again, are going to show up very black and shiny. They want to be showy. They want to be seen by females. And then the hen's going to be very dull and brown, because she wants to be hidden. And I should apologize that, yes, I did take a lot of my photos off the internet and didn't give people credit for them. So I apologize for that, but I want you to be aware that these are not photos that I took. Where to hunt? Always a question that we get from hunters, or especially new hunters. Remember, this is a species of the woods. Iowa has about 3 million acres of forested habitat in the state, most of that being on private property. But we have a lot of land, about 100,000 acres of Iowa DNR-owned land is in timber management, all good for wild turkey hunting, and spread out in all corners of the state of Iowa. But what we tend to think of is hunting in these blocks or patches of timbers. But we also know that turkeys move up and down riparian areas, which would be river corridors, small grasslands that only have a few limited trees in them. They really need those trees mostly to roost in. And then they use some of those trees for some protection from some predators as well. So again, lots of places to hunt in Iowa with turkeys, but at some point there's going to be trees associated with that. So when we're out scouting and looking, we're looking for oak hickory timber. And it doesn't have to be big blocks of timber like you see on the left, but it's got to have a hickory or oak timber component into it. And along the rivers, we're going to be looking for cottonwoods and other trees like that. Lots of places to hunt. I alluded to the fact that there's about 3 million acres of forest land in Iowa. If you're new to hunting in Iowa, anything that we manage and own is an Iowa DNR, and that's also going to be in compliance with a lot of county conservation board areas. We use the green signs. Green signs mean they're wildlife management areas that are open to public hunting. I'm always going to ask people to go out to the Iowa DNR Hunting Atlas. That's an application that we have on our webpage that shows all of the public hunting that's available in the state of Iowa. The orange signs are actually private land that the Iowa DNR helps manage. And in turn for managing that land, the landowner gives us permission to allow hunting on those areas between September 1st and May 31st. And of course, that includes the turkey hunting seasons. So you can go onto that private land to hunt turkeys without permission. The orange sign is what gives you permission. It's land that the DNR is managing for that private landowner. And in turn, he's allowing Iowa hunters to go onto that land. And then, of course, the third type of land in Iowa is private land. Lots of private land, lots of places to hunt turkeys on private land, but it is private land. You have to have permission explicitly from the landowner before you can enter onto those properties. Locating turkeys, it's always a fun thing. So I found my piece of property, but now I want to locate turkeys. And the easiest way to do that is that, again, males like to be seen and they like to be heard. And this time of the year, they're starting to try to attract their females. So they're going to gobble. They're going to gobble in the morning. They're going to gobble in the evening. They're going to gobble anytime that they can gobble. And all we have to do is go out and sit and listen. When you start hearing turkeys gobble, you're going to start to put a pattern together. What trees are they roosting in? What fields are they moving to? And that's all going to be information that we use. But right now, the best time to be locating turkeys is a half an hour before sunrise to about an hour after sunrise, and then right at sunset. That last 15 minutes of the day, those turkeys are flying back up into roost. And when they fly up into roost, they want to gobble so they can attract as many females to them as they can, or so the females know where they're at, so in the morning they can find each other. And so why do I add this picture in? One specific reason. Turkey hunting is a very difficult sport. I talked about 58,000 people bought licenses last year and only about 15,000 people were successful. We have an average success rate of about 22 to 25% in Iowa. We don't go turkey hunting because we're going to be successful if we define success as harvesting a bird. There's lots of other ways to be successful. The other wildlife we see, the family and friends that we get to enjoy time with, the turkey hunting tag becomes the excuse to go into the world, out into the woods. So you have to learn to define success and realize that most of us will not be successful if we define bringing a bird home. But the thing that I want to reiterate by having this fox squirrel here as one of my last slides is this is a wild turkey. This is a species that everything tries to eat. This animal has to be the wariest animal in the woods. He's always moving. He's always got his eyes on. He's always got his ears open. And there's lots of squirrels in Iowa. If you want to become a good hunter in Iowa, if you want to learn good woodsmanship skills, learn to hunt squirrels. Because when you can hunt squirrels, the species that everything else is trying to eat, and you can get some of those in your bag, you will improve your skills enough that you can become a successful turkey hunter. We can go out and mess up a squirrel, and there's another squirrel down the same ridge. But if we go out this spring and mess up the one and only turkey that we might hear, we have to wait a whole nother year before we can go turkey hunting. So I just like to put that out in everybody's wheelhouse that don't miss out on our fall squirrel hunting opportunities. It's much like our spring turkey hunting. It'll give you a great set of skills. With that, I'd like to see if there's any questions that we might have, and I'll stop sharing my screen so that I can look at some of those. And there are lots of things that we can discuss. I was trying to keep it kind of short and on time, so we did have time for questions. At the same time, I can always talk about additional things if people want to know more about tailing males from females. We'll get into some of the other stuff next week as far as calls and things like that. But tonight, I just wanted to be kind of a quick overview, that history of wild turkeys in Iowa, where we've come from, and why it's so important that new turkey hunters understand that this is something we've lost once. We want to conserve it. We want to use it, but we have to be mindful of how we use it.
Great job, Jim. There are a few questions here. I know they're going to keep rolling in, so we don't answer them here in the few minutes before we turn things over to Dustin. We'll get to them later in the seminar. First question, Jim, how many eggs will a hen lay per day?
Yeah, so it's a great biological question. On average, we usually just say for general purposes, they lay 1 egg a day, but that's not quite really the truth. They kind of have an egg at every day and a half at the beginning, and towards the end, they'll lay 1 day an egg a day. It takes about 15 days to lay a clutch of 12, but none of those eggs start incubating until the last egg is laid, because all of those eggs will be hatched within 24 hours of each other. And as soon as they are, that hen is up and she moves away from that nest. So great question, but on average about 1 egg per day. And I've seen clutches as small as 8, and I've seen clutches as large as 22. And she'll sit on all of them the same.
Yeah, good stuff there, Jim. Next question. Let's see here. There's a lot of them coming in here. I'm going to pick a couple more, and then we'll just start taking some of them behind the scenes here. So tell us a little bit real quick, maybe about the fall turkey season. The question was, does Iowa have a fall turkey season?
We do, and that's probably something we'll probably have another Learn to Hunt seminar maybe next fall, because the unique thing is that fall turkey hunting is a completely different sport than spring turkey hunting. In the spring, we're trying to attract that male bird, and we're trying to fool him thinking that we're a hen. And in the fall, which is a more traditional turkey hunting season, especially out east, we're actually hunting the young of the year. We're trying to break up those flocks of young birds and then call them back to us. Because they've never been out of a flock, and they want to be in a flock. They want to be together. So it's a different type of hunting. And we do allow dogs in the fall. And the reason we do is, again, traditionally out east, you would use the dog to find the birds and break them up. And then the dog would sit beside you as you called like a hen turkey and called the poults back to you, or the young of the year back to you. So that's why we do allow dogs to be used in the fall, because it's a traditional way to hunt fall turkeys, but a completely different mindset from spring turkey hunting.
Yeah, lots of good questions continuing to come in. I'm going to take one more, and then Jim will probably hop off, and he'll probably be answering some of those behind the scenes with you all directly. What about the harvest numbers? So there were more hunters out last year. COVID had everybody not at the soccer fields and baseball games. People were out turkey hunting last spring. Do you think that it's going to have an impact on the turkey population, for this spring?
Yeah, great question. So that's one of the mysteries of wild turkey biology. Is what we do know is we're only harvesting males, or the males or bearded birds. So there are a few hens that get harvested. If people are following the rules and regulations, we know that one male breeds with many females. So those males become excess animals. They don't need to be on the landscape to perpetuate the population. What we can't control is loss of habitat and spring weather, which has an impact on nesting. So what we kind of look at is the population projections from 2 years ago of how many males will be out there this year. So yeah, we harvested a lot of males last year, but if you see a downturn, it's probably not going to be because there were more harvested last year. It's because we had bad spring weather 2 years ago. And the majority of birds harvested are 2-year-old males.
Good stuff. Well, Jim, thank you. I know you had quite a bit there with us, and it was certainly engaging and good stuff as always. Plenty of questions waiting for you in the chat, in the Q&A feature here. So
I will probably
get to.
Yeah, I'll jump off and answer as many of those as I can directly.
Excellent.
And
fantastic.
Just remember, we'll be here next week. And if anybody needs to contact me, they can certainly get a hold of me here at my office. And that number's in our regulations booklet.
Yep, great stuff, Jim. For some of y'all entering questions, keep in mind that next week's going to be covering calling strategies. I saw some stuff in there about maybe, where should I put my blind, and is it too early to put a blind out? So that stuff we'll definitely try to be getting to next week. I think Matt tonight's going to be talking primarily about gear and considerations in terms of equipment. Next week will be the meat and potatoes. I hate to say that because I say it all the time. But with that being said, we're going to turn it over now to Dustin Amy. Dustin is one of our conservation officers in the central Iowa area. He's going to be talking with you all tonight about regulations, what's going to keep you legal and safe while out in the field. Dustin?
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. Excited to be on here tonight. They asked me to come back and share a little bit about our regulations and a little bit of safety with you folks tonight. So excited to be here. Coming from Dallas County here is my territory. But just so you do know, we do have conservation officers spread out across the state of Iowa. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can contact those officers if you have questions after this seminar, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So I kind of like to start out just by talking a little bit about hunter education. That is something that is required once you hit that age 16 mark. So if you are 16 years and older, you will need to have had hunter safety here in Iowa to obtain your hunting license and purchase that habitat fee as well. For those that are listening that aren't 16 yet, and there might be a few on here that, or you might have some kids or nephews or nieces that you're taking out hunting, they can go with you without purchasing that hunting license as long as you're an adult and licensed yourself. But there is that web address. You can get on there, sign up, get registered for classes. They're firing up right now. We're holding classes throughout Iowa. There is some COVID restrictions, but we're pretty much fired up and going at it again. So make sure you get in on that. Another thing I'll mention to you folks is our apprentice hunting license. That's for people that are over the age of 16 that may be new to this, like most of you here tonight, maybe, that want to give it a go and give it a shot without maybe buying all the gear and getting a gun, and you just aren't quite sure if you are interested in this yet, but you want to give it a try. Well, we do offer an apprentice license that you can buy, and in that package is your hunting license and habitat fee that is required along with your turkey tag. So you can do that for up to 2 years, and we kind of believe that after 2 years you've enjoyed it, then you can go ahead and take that hunter education course and get your own hunting license. But with that apprentice license, you have to go with a licensed adult. It's kind of like a mentored hunt, and you can go out and enjoy that hunt. So we have that option as well. Just going to promote a little bit our Go Iowa Outdoors app. If you haven't downloaded that, it is free. You can get it on Google Play or your app store through your iPhone. With that app, you're able to purchase direct licenses directly from that app. There's a lot of features on there as far as your sunrise, sunset table, which will come in real handy when you're trying to find out the shooting legal times. You can report your deer and turkeys directly on that app as well. We'll talk a little bit about harvest reporting your turkey after maybe you've had a successful hunt. But we do, as officers, accept that in the field. If you're out there hunting and you get checked by one of our fine conservation officers, you can pull that app right up and show that you have a hunting license directly from there. Also, what you're going to see on the screen there is our new hard card. And that hard card for $5 is basically like a little plastic credit card. A lot of the licenses that we check in the field, the paper licenses and stuff, they're very hard to read. They don't print off the best sometimes, and maybe you've washed it in your wallet and you just can't read it or anything. Well, we've got some neat artwork on those, and it'll be printed right on that hard card, and you can purchase that every year. So let's get talking a little bit about what are the required licenses that you need to hunt turkey here in Iowa? Well, you need your hunting license and you need your habitat fee. And along with that, you're going to need that wild turkey spring hunting license that's valid for the current year. We aren't going to accept a license in the field that is 2020 or 2019. It needs to be the 2021 current year license. They do not carry over, unfortunately, from year to year if you are unsuccessful. If you are successful, this is what the tag will look like that you're going to pull out of your pocket. And you need to have this on your person. I know you can purchase your licenses online and the department will mail those to you. Usually it takes 7 to 10 days for those licenses to come in the mail to you. So you want to get on that now. If you want to pick your season that you're going to hunt for, get that purchased if you're going to get it in the mail. Otherwise, you can go to your local sporting goods store, a Walmart or Hy-Vee, or I'm not trying to promote a certain one, but wherever they sell those licenses, you can go and get that tag directly purchased from the store. They'll print it off for you. So we'll talk a little bit about this tag here a little bit later on, but there's a lot of information on there. Pretty much it's going to have your DNR number, your name and address, what season you chose for. So make sure before you leave that counter that you check your licenses and you got what you asked for from that vendor. Just because Walmart or Shields or Bass Pro or someone, they're selling your licenses, I'm not saying that they're experts in the hunting category. So you need to, I kind of always put it like this. I don't go to Walmart and ask for medical advice. I'm not going to go there and ask for hunting advice either. So it's up to you as a responsible sportsman to find out that you got the correct licenses that you asked for, and you also got the correct tag. One other caveat there is you cannot possess or use another person's turkey license during the season. So make sure that's your son or your daughter or your dad or mom or whoever, you're carrying your own license in your possession. You don't want to go out there and have someone else's license with you in your possession as the officer comes up and checks you, and you're going to put that tag that you purchased with your name on the bird. There's going to be 2 types of licenses that will be issued. We have the combination shotgun and archery license, which allows you to pick one or the other that you want to take out there for the method of take. And we also have the archery only license. Now you cannot obtain more than 2 paid spring wild turkey hunting licenses. You can get up to 2. You can't get 3 or 4. You can't go every single season, 1, 2, 3, or 4th season. And a hunter may obtain no more than 2 combination shotgun archery licenses or 2 archery only licenses, or 1 of each. If 2 paid combination shotgun and archery licenses are obtained, at least one of them must be for season 4. So your first license, if you want to do shotgun season, you're going to pick one of the first 3 seasons to go in, or you can pick them both for 4th season. You can get 2 4th season tags. That means you have to wait until that 4th season starts. We'll talk about season dates here in a little bit. But if you want to choose your first license, you can choose it for season 1, season 2, or season 3. Kind of depends on weather. I kind of like to wait and see what the forecast is going to be. There might be snow on the ground. It might be cold like it was last year, and I want to go 2nd season. Then your second tag can be for the 4th season. If 1 paid combination shotgun and archery tag license and 1 archery only license is obtained, that shotgun archery license must be for the 4th season. Here's kind of a neat little graph. Apologize for the dog. Here's a neat little graph. Which seasons can I hunt? And if you just follow along there, let's say your first license is going to be a gun bow tag for seasons 1, 2, or 3. Well, your second tag, if you follow the arrow down, is going to be for the 4th season, and so on. Talk a little bit about your bag limit versus possession limit. Okay, the bag limit is the maximum number of game allowed to be taken by one person in any one day during the open season. And your possession limit is the maximum number of any kind of game that may be kept by a person at any one time. It means in your house or in your freezer. So like Jim had mentioned, we allow you to shoot 1 bird per license. So if an officer shows up, you don't want to have 2 birds in your possession with only 1 tag. The bag limit's going to be 1 bearded turkey or a male turkey for the spring season. Here are the season dates for our wild turkey spring season. We also have the youth season, which is April 9th through the 11th of this year. As you can see, season 1 begins on April 12th and goes through the 15th. Season 2 is April 16th through the 20th. And season 3 is April 21st to the 27th. And we have season 4, which is a little bit longer, April 28th through May 16th. So as you progress through the seasons, the days become a little bit longer. I had it wrote down here. I think it's 4 days and then 5 and then 7. And then I think it's 19. I'm not sure on that on my math, but on season 4. If you're an archer and you purchase only that archery license, which means you can only use a bow, you can go the whole 35 days and you can purchase that license. You can go every season with that archery tag. So if you're better than me at archery, I've tried that before. It takes a little bit more skill and patience to shoot a turkey with a bow. You have to get them in a little bit closer than maybe you would with your shotgun, but you also can go during the whole, all 4 seasons with that tag. Your shooting hours are a half hour before sunrise to sunset. Now, I put a little picture of that app because that's what that app on your phone is going to look like. And there's that tab there that you can click on, and it'll show you your sunrise and sunset table, which changes daily. So you'll want to pay attention to that as you're preparing for your season there. Our youth spring wild turkey hunt, it's a very popular season. It's a time to get out there with a youngster and get them interested in the outdoors and have a shot at those turkeys before anyone else does. It's a special youth turkey season. It is valid statewide and may be issued to any Iowa resident who's 15 years or younger on the date the youth purchases the license. Now, if that youth was to turn 16 during the season, they are still able to use that, but they're going to have to buy your hunting license and habitat fee at that time because they are 16. They're still able to use the youth tag because they purchased it before they actually turned 16. They must be accompanied by an adult, which is 18 years and older, who also possesses a valid spring turkey license for one of the seasons and a hunting license and habitat fee. So that adult's going to have to choose before the youth season starts. If they're going to take their youth out with them, they have to purchase a turkey license for one of the seasons. So maybe they purchase the season 4 tag and decide which season on their other tag they want to go on 1, 2, or 3. The adult can't possess a firearm or a bow, and they must be in direct company of the youth at all times. This is a mentoring process. We want you focused solely on that youth and all your attention focused on them, making sure they're pointing the muzzle in a safe direction and teaching them safety aspects through the whole process. The youth may also obtain one archery only license or one combination shotgun archery license, but that's going to have to be for season 4. So they are able to get their 2 turkeys, but they're going to have to wait until the 4th season to do that. Now, some may say, well, that's not really fair. Well, the youth kind of has an advantage here because if they aren't successful during the youth season, then they may use that unused tag during any of the remaining spring turkey seasons. So they can go during shotgun 1 if they aren't successful. Then they can go during, the season 2 or 3 until they fill that tag. Now, once that tag is filled, then they're going to have to wait until the 4th season to purchase their 2nd tag. Wanton waste and making a reasonable attempt to retrieve your game. So while taking or attempting to take game or fur-bearing animals, you cannot abandon the injured animal without making a reasonable effort to retrieve it from the field, which basically means you can't leave the usable portion of the game in the field, whatever is customarily processed for consumption. So the meat on the legs, the breast, and we just don't want to leave that in the field. And I don't know any ethical person that's going to do this, why you would want to go out there and just shoot a turkey and leave it lay. Essentially, that is, what we consider probably a poacher and being very unethical unless they got up there and it just, wasn't the turkey they were after, and then they decide to go shoot another one and tag that one. That would be illegal, and you have to retrieve the game. Let's say you shoot, we'll talk a little bit about trespassing, I guess, versus retrieval of, injured or killed game on private property. So you shot a turkey and it crossed over a fence and went onto someone else's property. Now you are able to go retrieve that animal, but you have to be unarmed. You can't take your firearm or bow with you. You have to leave that on the fence or the side where you had permission, and take the most direct route to that animal. And you want to tag it before moving it, and then bring it back the most direct route to the property that you had permission on. What can we legally harvest our turkeys with? Well, for a gun bow, or for the gun bow license, you're able to either use archery equipment, which could be a long bow, a recurve bow, or a compound bow. Crossbows are not legal except for physically handicapped persons in the upper extremities, and you have to get a special permit, which you can get that permit on our DNR website. You can take that to your physician and get it signed off on that, and present that back to the DNR, mail it in, and you can get a permit for a crossbow, and then that would make it legal for you to use a crossbow as long as you have that permit. Otherwise, you have to use that long bow, recurve bow, or compound bow. We don't, unfortunately, allow any explosives or chemical devices to be attached to the arrow or the broadhead. We do allow the blunt head arrows with a minimum diameter of 9/16 inch can be used to break that wing bone. We'll talk about, shot placement here in a little bit. And your arrows must be at least 18 inches long. We allow nothing smaller than a 20 gauge shotgun to be used to harvest a turkey. It has been pretty widely contested on the 410 shotguns. 410 is not legal in Iowa yet. I'm not saying it's not capable of killing a turkey by any means, but it is not legal to use a 410 yet in Iowa. So 10, 12, 16, or 20 gauge shotguns, or a muzzleloading shotguns, and they have to shoot number 4 through number 8 lead or non-toxic shot. So you can't have anything else in your possession on your person while hunting turkeys besides number 4 or 8 lead or non-toxic shot. With that being said, like you heard me say, you can use lead. Now, there are more and more areas that aren't allowing lead to be on them. Specifically, maybe some county conservation board areas in your counties that do not allow lead on anything. So you'll want to double check that. Plan your hunt and hunt your plan prior to you getting to your hunting spot, to make sure you know all the rules and regulations and what you can and can't do there. Tagging and transportation tag. So earlier I showed you a picture of that license, the yellow and white one. Now there's 2 portions to that transportation tag. There's a top portion and a bottom portion. The bigger portion on the bottom, that is your transportation tag. Okay. That is what you're going to tag the turkey with upon killing it. So you must immediately tag your turkey. And then there's also a date bar or month and day on the bottom of that tag that you're going to notch out after you tag it on the day that you killed it. Okay. So the hunter who shot the turkey must use that transportation tag issued to that hunter to tag the turkey. And the tag must be attached to the leg before the carcass can be moved in any manner from the place of kill. And the tag shall remain affixed to the leg or the turkey until the turkey is processed for consumption. So you shot the turkey, you walk up to it. Even before taking pictures, I would suggest that you immediately get your tag out of your pocket, because you have to have it in possession to even be out there hunting, and affix it to the leg in a way that to get it off of there, basically it has to be mutilated or destroyed. You want to place it on there and stick it together really good. And then it also helps, social media is a big thing, posting pictures on the internet to your friends and everything else. You don't want that question out there if you shot it legally or not. If you have that turkey in your picture and it has that tag on the leg, it's a good ethical thing to get into. That way you're not getting questioned or anything by that, or having an officer come to your house to ask you why that you have an untagged bird in your photo. Harvest reporting. This isn't something new. This has been going on for several years now. Same as deer hunting. We have to report our bird to the Iowa DNR harvest reporting system. This helps out with determining populations with biologists. They use these numbers. And it also helps as far as how many licenses that the DNR will provide to the public later on. It's a number that they use to come up if it looks like nobody's reporting birds, but they're actually shooting them. Later on, and we might start reducing some of those numbers in those counties, or reducing how many licenses we're going to sell to hunters. But if everyone's reporting their birds and it looks like everyone's being successful, it shows that the population's stable, then maybe we can either increase the number of licenses sold, or remain status quo. So the hunters whose name is on that transportation tag is also the one that has to be responsible for making that report. And that report must be made by midnight on the day after the animal is tagged, or before the animal is taken to a locker or taxidermist, before process of consumption starts, or is transported out of the state, whichever one of those occurs first. Now, the process of consumption is typically viewed as you get home, you're starting to either pluck your bird, or you're cutting the breasts and legs off of it. You started the process. At that point, we need to report that bird. And that's the top portion of the tag. So you've already removed the transportation tag that allows you to take that bird and transport it home. Now you have the top portion left of that tag, and you need to report it. And there's several ways that you can do that. Again, you can go to your Go Iowa Outdoors app and report it directly on there. It's going to ask you a few questions. You can text to Harvest. Now there's a number on that tag you can text. And I actually did this with my deer this year, and it was very simple. They text right back and give you a confirmation number. You can go back to where you bought your licenses and report it. You can go on our iowadnr.gov website and report your bird as well. So several ways that you can get it reported. They're going to give you your confirmation number to write down. There is a 9-digit number on there that you're going to give them, probably ask you which county you shot it in, and then also probably ask you maybe the spur length. And then those typically are just the normal questions. They're going to give you your 8 or 9-digit confirmation number back. You're going to write it on that tag, and you're also going to attach that to the leg of the turkey. I think we're going to stop right here before I go into the safety aspect and take a little bit of a break.
You are right, Dustin. Good timing there. It's a little after 8 o'clock. Let's take a quick 4-minute break. We'll come back at 7:20, and then Dustin will wrap up with some of the safety real quick, and then we'll get into Matt's portion of gear and equipment. So with that, let's break for 4 minutes. We'll get back at 8:20. Thanks, everybody. All right, we'll go ahead and get going again here in just a minute. We'll let Dustin come back on. Had a lot of good conversation and questions coming in. Dustin, before you get into some of the regulations or some of the maybe gun safety and other tips, there was a pretty good question that came in. I know myself, I'm just a recent carry conceal handgun owner myself. Had a lot of questions even about just going out, walking properties with a firearm on my person. So this question pertains to that. Dustin, are you with us? I see your mic's unmuted, but I don't see your face yet.
Yeah, there we go. I couldn't get the video going.
There you go. So I do have a question for you, and then you can roll right into the gun safety portion. Question coming in from one of our YouTubers. During youth season, it says an adult cannot carry a gun. Does that apply to your personal carry handgun? You've got the permit.
So your concealed carry permit?
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't know why not. That's something I'm probably going to have to. I mean, we can while we deer hunt. So I guess I haven't heard anything different about turkey hunting. So I'm going to say yes. It's not a method of take, obviously, for turkeys, and we're not allowing you to carry that shotgun and archery equipment because those are typically method of take for turkey season. So I'm going to say yes for personal protection, and that's their right and everything else. So go for it. If I hear otherwise here at the end of the seminar, I'll address that again. I'll reach out to research that a little bit more here for you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dustin. We'll let you keep it up. Thanks.
Let's see. All right, we're going to jump right back in here and talk a little bit about safety while you're out there turkey hunting. That's the main goal, obviously, is to come home safely. We all want a safe hunt. We don't. We as officers dread the call where an accident's happened, and we have to show up. And when you're hunting out there, you typically aren't hunting with strangers with you. You're hunting with loved ones, and it can be a very scary time if an accident happens. But we also can prevent those if we just take our time and don't get in a hurry and follow your safety precautions that you learn in hunter safety, as far as, making sure that you treat your firearm as if it were loaded. You want to always keep that muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Be sure of your target and what is beyond it. You want a positive identification of that wild turkey, and do not shoot at movement. That's a big one. We don't want to shoot at anything that's moving in the brush. It could be another hunter. And besides that, we don't know if it's a male turkey or a hen. And like Jim had mentioned earlier, we're only allowed to shoot the bearded turkeys or a male turkey. So if you're just shooting at movement, that's when the accidents really start to happen. Keep your finger off that trigger until you're ready to shoot. Have that thumb up there on the safety or your finger on the safety, but keep that safety on until it's time to that you actually have that bird in your view, and it's within range, and you can click it off the safety there, and then go ahead and pull that trigger to make your kill. There's a lot going on while you're out there turkey hunting, and we need to just make sure. There's a lot of excitement going on, a lot of adrenaline going through you. You just heard your first gobble, and so all that adrenaline and everything else can kind of make it a little fuzzy, and you might start to forget a little bit of those safety aspects. So stop and slow down and run those safety things through your heads. If you were happen to fall down going into your hunting spot, make sure that you didn't plug up the end of your barrel with mud or snow or anything of that nature. And, sticks can get in the trigger. So I don't load my firearm until I'm actually sat down next to a tree or in my turkey blind. I don't load it as I'm carrying out there, because I sometimes have a chair with me. I have decoys with me. You have your gun with you. You've got your snacks with you. Maybe you have a little youngster with you like I do sometimes, and you're trying to focus on them. So I don't want to even risk the fact of having a loaded gun where a stick might accidentally get in the trigger and fire that gun off, or if your safety fails. I mean, it's a mechanism. It's a something that's a mechanical device, and those things do fail. So I take all precautions while I'm out there, and make sure that even if I do think it's unloaded, to always treat it as if it is loaded. Okay. With today's technology, they have made these decoys just realistic as all get out. And it's just incredible. When I went and purchased decoys there a couple years ago, I was amazed how far they've come from just the brown foam hen that I started out with to now. These decoys look so realistic that even people are finding other hunters trying to sneak up on their own decoys because they think they're so real. And that's something that we have to consider. I mean, if you're like me and I hunt a lot of public ground, you're not the only hunter out there in the woods. And so you need to find your spot and stick to it and stay put where you're hunting at. Because if there's other hunters out there, they're probably also using decoys as well. And you're also imitating the sound of a wild turkey. You're sounding like either a hen by clucking and purring, or you might have a gobble call where you're sounding like a male tom turkey. Well, if another hunter hears you calling, I don't suggest doing this, is getting up and moving towards that call, especially on public ground, because then you are risking the chance of that hunter either, might not follow those 3 basics of shooting at movement or anything else, and might think you're another turkey, and then an accident happens and you get shot. So here in this picture, I kind of pulled these off the internet today. Can you decide which one's the real turkeys and which ones are the decoys, or are they both real to you? I find it kind of interesting is the one on the left is a decoy. That is a Dave Smith decoy that is created now. It's a Jake. You can tell by the fan there that it is a Jake, because all the fan is not fully developed where it's even around the top there. The middle feathers are a little bit longer than the others. And the other ones are real turkeys. So you can tell the comparison there. And so just be cautious with that. Even on private ground, you don't know who else has permission to be on the property that you're hunting as well. And be cautious of that. Practice. Practice makes perfect. And so you need to start now. And you guys are on the board right now. You're listening to a lot of good speakers today, a lot of good information. You're going to gather more information next week, but you need to go out and practice with your shotgun or your bow that you're going to be using for the season. So visit your local shooting ranges. I know the DNR has a few of them out there. There's a few that are free. I don't know what you all have in your local areas, but here in Dallas and Polk County, we have a brand new, nice Butch Olson shooting range. Those employees out there are very knowledgeable with firearms, are very knowledgeable with hunting, and they are there to help you either pattern your shotgun. They might be able to establish eye dominance. That's very important when you're starting out shooting your gun. They're just Google eye dominance and how you can figure out if you're left eye dominant or right eye dominant. That's going to play a big key in being successful in shooting that turkey. Okay. Because if you're using the wrong eye, you might be off left or right of where you actually think you're aiming. And I know I went through this last year with my wife and her shooting her first turkey. We went out and practiced, and she had a hard time closing her left eye. And I found it kind of funny because the day it came when we were out there hunting, and I looked over and she had a glove stuck in her stocking cap to cover up her eye, so she could shoot with her dominant eye straight. You need to figure out safe zones of fire. And when we talk about zones of fire, you'll learn that in hunter education. But basically, it's referred to as zone of fire. It's the hunter's ability to be able to determine left or right whether they can shoot effectively and safely. So let's think about pheasant hunting when you're out there with several people or whatever. You're in a line, a distance 20, 40 yards away from each other, and a bird gets up and it gets up to your right. Well, your zone of fire is probably directly at a 45-degree angle in front of you. You're not going to point to the right. So you need to figure out your zone of fire when you're out there in the woods as well. When you set up next to that tree or you set your blind up, scout out the area and stick to that area. If there's nothing behind you that you can shoot, or there might be, some trees and brush that it's not going to give you a clear shot, determine that effective zone of fire out in front of you before the hunt even happens. And your effective shooting distance, you need to take that into consideration. And distance and judging, how far can you shoot? You'll hear a lot of hunters say, oh, I shot that turkey at 60 yards and they brag about it. Well, that's just bad information. That's bad advice to any person starting out hunting. 60 yards is a long ways. Yes, there are guns, and yes, you are capable of probably getting a pellet into that turkey's head or a spinal cord and killing it, but also the chances of injuring that turkey and it surviving but running off wounded and suffering, those risks go up big time the further the shot that you have. I don't know if it's this week or next week that they're going to talk about chokes and stuff, and the chokes play an important role of tightening that pattern down so you can shoot a little bit further. But I recommend 35 yards and less, okay, and getting that turkey into at least 35 yards. And Jim mentioned they have great sight and everything else. So when you're set up next to the tree, you want to pick a tree that is wider than your shoulders, so you're blending in with that tree. And if you hear that first gobble and you've got that turkey coming to you, get that turkey or get that shotgun up on your cheek and on your shoulder and point it in the direction where you think that turkey is going to be coming in your safe zone of fire, and get ready for it to show up. And once you see that bird, it's hard to judge that distance because they're bigger than what you think when they're all puffed up and strutting. And you can practice judging your distance at home, if you're at the mall or if you're at work. Pick an area out and then walk it off and say, this is where 35 yards is, and look at that distance. And you'll practice that, and then you'll start doing it automatically while you're out there in the field as well. And so as you're sitting there in the morning or the evening or the afternoon, and you're waiting on those turkeys to come to you, pick out objects around you in your safe zone of fire and either walk them off or take a rangefinder and keep those a mental note to you that when that turkey reaches that certain spot, then I'm able to shoot if I have a safe shot at that turkey. It's very important because you want to have a good, clean, ethical kill and not wound that bird. Shot placements. So these are some pictures that I found today, and the top left one there is very interesting. So you think when they're strutting and they're all puffed up like that, that it would be a very easy target to shoot the turkey. And I can tell you, I have missed turkeys at 20 yards or less. Don't know how. I'm kind of embarrassed to even admit that, but my wife and I both missed a turkey last year, and probably just moved its head. But a strutting turkey like that, as you can see in that top left, has his spinal cord kind of bent in an S shape, a backwards S there, instead of sticking straight up. And I wouldn't recommend shooting. It's harder to shoot at a strutting turkey than it is when they're fully out of strut and their neck, like the right picture there, is straight up and down. You have a lot more of a target to shoot at. Now with a shotgun, you're going to be aiming for the head and the spinal cord to kill it very quickly. Those pellets, they have a lot of feathers there. They have wings. If you were to shoot a turkey in the side and in the wing, you could injure it. They could run off. Not saying it won't kill it, but a clean, ethical kill with a shotgun is going to be directly in the head. And you're going to point your sight at directly the bottom of their neck where the feathers reach that bare neck spot right there. Don't aim at the top of their head, because if they duck, you're going to miss. But at least it gives you a little bit of a leniency to hit the majority of the head and also that spinal cord to drop them. Now with an archery equipment, you'll see different locations there. You'll aim on the frontal shot there, right above the beard. You'll aim right where the wing joins the body, and you'll hit the heart and lungs if you hit that. Now you're going to break the wing, and that's typically why we allow those blunt broadheads as well, to break that bone and get in there in the vitals. If they're facing away from you, you can go right up the middle there, where they will typically do their business there and poop. That's a good clean kill there as well. And they also make broadheads that are able to, they're called guillotine broadheads. They're kind of just a large razor blades that bow hunters will shoot at the turkey head and basically decapitate that head off that turkey and kill it really quickly. Now that's a very harder shot. I mean, you look at that turkey head and it's a small shot. I mean, small target there. I would rather stick to the broadheads and shooting at the vitals, the heart and the lungs there. These pictures are kind of just to show your shots, like good, clean, ethical shots. Turkeys will come in. I've had turkeys come in, single turkeys, tom strutting in, running into your decoys. But I would say most of my hunts, they're paired up with another tom, or there might be a tom with several jakes with them, or there might be a whole flock of them with hens mixed in with your tom turkeys. And they stick together. They'll strut together. They're almost touching each other. Their heads are almost touching each other. So those wouldn't be a good, clean, ethical shot, because you're probably going to shoot one, if not two birds there on any of these shots right here. Now, if that happens, what are we going to do? I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but you're going to call your officer and you're going to confess to them on the phone that you shot two turkeys with one shot, and they're going to work with you, and it's going to be up to the discretion of them. Now, if you do this every single year, and we might have a problem with that. But how do you prevent doing this? Well, you have to be very patient. I understand your adrenaline's going through you. The excitement's up there. They're 10 yards away from you. They're strutting, they're spitting, they're gobbling. But you have to wait for that good, clean shot where they separate from each other, where there's no other birds behind them, there's no other birds right beside them, and that they're by themselves, where you can only shoot one turkey. One other thing, just want to quick touch on, prohibited hunting near buildings and stuff. You cannot discharge a firearm or shoot or attempt to shoot at a game animal within 200 yards of a building inhabited by people or domestic livestock or a feedlot, unless the owner or tenant has given you consent to do so. This isn't archery equipment. This is a firearm. So make sure you have permission if you're going to be hunting within 200 yards of a building or a feedlot there. And also transporting firearms. Just touch on that real quick. You've got to transport it from your house to wherever you're hunting and back home. So unless it's permitted by law, you can't have or carry a gun in a vehicle on a public highway unless the gun is taken down or totally contained in a securely fastened case, and that the magazines or the barrels, everything are unloaded there. If you're unfortunate, and you are in a hunting accident or involved in one, you have to report it. So anyone involved with that has property damage, you've accidentally shot a building or a car or something of that is exceeding $100, or personal injury, you have to report that within 12 hours to either the sheriff's office in the county or to your local conservation officer. If neither of those options are available to you, you may also contact the Des Moines DNR building, the Walls building downtown Des Moines at that number there. But make sure that you do report those accidents. They have to be investigated. So we learn from those mistakes and get a report filed on those. And finally, that is what our regulations do look like. Grab one of those at your local vendors. You can also download that, as a PDF on your smartphone. I think you can access these regulations through that Go Outdoors Iowa app on one of the links on the bottom. But on the back side there, the conservation officers and their phone numbers for the county that you're in are all listed there. And those phone numbers are there for a reason. We want you to call us. You can text us. If you ever have any questions or you're out there and you want to report a crime, you want to turn in a poacher, we appreciate that. It takes you folks to help us do our job, and we appreciate that. So anytime you want to report a tip or anything, those numbers are there for you to use. I guess the biggest thing I'll leave with everything here, and I'm sure I got some questions, but just make sure, set your goals. Don't set your goals so high that your number one goal is to kill a turkey. Jim mentioned that 50,000 licenses were sold last year and almost 15,000 people were successful. That's pretty good. I've had years where I've had tag soup and I didn't get a turkey. And that's okay. I wouldn't call it a failure because every time I go to the woods, if I think like Jim likes to mention, if he gets a nap in, it's a success for him. But even hearing a turkey is a success. Getting one to gobble back is a success. Seeing one is a success. Or just getting out there and seeing something you haven't ever experienced is a success. So set your goals that are obtainable. And if you are able to harvest a wild turkey, then that's a bonus. I've had a lot of days out there where I didn't hear a turkey. You're going to have some down times and you're going to have some really high times, and it happens so fast. You could be sitting there 1 minute getting ready to pick up, and the next thing you know, you've got a turkey on the ground. So be careful out there, be successful. I'll be on here answering your questions the rest of the evening. So I do appreciate that. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Dustin. Good job, man, as always. Now we're going to be joining with Matt Smith with the National Wild Turkey Federation. Matt, we may be just a touch behind schedule, but I do think we're going to be able to get all the content in tonight. Matt, are you there? You with us?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. So I think what Matt's got on the menu for his portion tonight, he's going to talk a little bit about clothing. We can gauge the time. If we need to push some of the firearms and archery discussion into to next week, we can. But I think just to be a steward of everyone's time, I think most everybody's comfortable going to probably maybe 10 after 8. So whatever we get here in the next 25, 30 minutes, Matt, we'll get to it. Whatever we don't, we'll get to next week. And people can either join us next week or check it out on our YouTube channel.
Awesome. Well,
thanks, Matt.
Cool. The main thing about turkey hunting is being camoed. Turkeys can see very, very well. They actually pick up movement more than anything, but they also can see color. So being camouflaged is very important. I'm just going to go through the things that I wear when I go turkey hunting. The crazy thing about turkey hunting in spring in Iowa is you cover basically all the seasons in about a month and a half. You go out in mid-April, it can be really cold. If you want to have a fun, successful hunt, you need to be comfortable. And the key to being comfortable is being warm and dry. So you're going to want to dress in layers and you're going to be waterproof. So typically, I wear camouflage pants. My first layer is typically a t-shirt and then a long sleeve camo shirt, t-shirt. I like a pocket in it so I can't see, so it gives me someplace to put my glasses. I have a button-down shirt that I wear over that. I also have these shirts that are more mesh, which in later season when it's a little warmer, it's nice to have something that breathes a little better. Sometimes I'll put that on under the long sleeve t-shirt. And then I always finish up with a waterproof jacket and pants. The big success or key to success for me is, getting started early enough when you're walking in where you're going to hunt. If you have a long ways to go and you have multiple layers, you're going to sweat. You don't want to get moving so fast and get so excited and get in and start sweating. And then you're wet and you sit down and then the cold really sets in. So give yourself plenty of time, dress in layers, take your time getting where you're going. I typically wear rubber boots. You can wear anything you want, but the key is having something that's going to keep your feet dry. Turkeys like being in timber and lowlands, and a lot of times you're crossing creeks and things. You want to have something that's going to keep your feet dry. You don't have to have a high boot, but if you're going to wear a shorter boot, one of the things, 3 colors you do not want to wear in the turkey words are red, white, or blue. The reason for that is mature Tom, his head has all 3 of those colors. And you always want to identify your target, but you don't know who the other guy is out in the woods. And if you have something red or white or blue, someone might mistake that for a turkey's head and might shoot you. So a lot of times when you sit down, if you have white socks on like you have right now, that could show up like a turkey's head. So you want to wear dark socks or high enough boots. You're not showing white or red or blue. Blue jeans are not a good thing in the timber. You want to go with camo on above and below, or at least dark colors. The other thing about turkeys is they see your face and your hands. So you want to have both those covered. When it's early season, when it's cold, I actually wear the same thing that I wear when I'm deer hunting. This is more of a full head cover, which covers up most of your face. It's awesome. So like I say, you're not gonna have anything shining off, but also keeps you warm, which is really important when it's really cold in the spring. As it gets warmer though, you're gonna want to go with more of a net. There's all kinds of different stuff on the market, and I had a whole bunch of stuff laying here, but there's actually hats that have the net built in. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money though. There's actually Hunter Specialties that's got these little things that are like $6, and it's just a little 3/4 net. And like I say, the key is making sure your cheeks are not showing up, and it just covers your face. So they actually make gloves like this. I had a whole bunch of gloves set out. I actually have, these are the Bernie Sanders version of gloves. Anything that makes it so that the white of your hands is not showing up. I have from heavy gloves to super lightweight. I bring multiple sets out with me because, like I say, especially in April, and it's cold when you start. So you want to have heavier gloves, but you want to switch to lighter stuff. You want to be comfortable. These net gaiters are phenomenal. You can cover up your neck and wear them right up on your nose to cover up your face and stuff. So it doesn't all have to match. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money. You just have to break up your outline. You have to make sure that you're not going to stand out in the woods. One of the other things that's an awesome thing to have, you don't have to have, but helps, is having a turkey vest. What I do is at the end of the season, we provide these a lot at our banquets. We'll give them away on raffles and stuff. But turkey vests are awesome for carrying all of the miscellaneous stuff that you will acquire as a turkey hunter. There's places for box calls and other kind of calls, which we'll get into that more next week. But there's lots and lots of pockets. They also have cushions built in, which we'll get into that next week also. But you want to be comfortable. If you're sitting on the ground, you get cold in a hurry. So there's a lot of different things you can use to keep yourself off the ground and be comfortable and sit for a long period of time. There's another style of vest. Got, like I say, lots of pockets and stuff. It's got a cushion built in. It's got a place to put decoys. So there's 1,000,001 YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff out online you can find to talk about the different clothing and stuff. The next thing I was talking about is firearms. You can kill a turkey with pretty much any firearm. Well, within the 20 gauge to, or I'm sorry, yeah, 20 through 10 gauge to 20 gauge. This was my first count. It's a 20 gauge single shot, modified cylinder. You can kill a turkey with this. The key is knowing what the lead or your effective range is. They make lots and lots of different targets to shoot at. These are a awesome target to use. It when you shoot them, they kind of light up. What I did this morning, I actually went out with my 12 gauge and I shot this at 25 yards where you see all these bright spots. That's where the pellets hit. Then I did it 45 yards. You can see how that was with a turkey choke. 25 yards would be very effective. At 45 yards, a lot less effective. I wouldn't probably use that gun at 45. Like Dustin said, you probably want to go 35 or less. And we'll get into this a little more probably next week. I'm just trying to hurry up and go through stuff. There's pump shotguns. This was my second gun I bought. It's 20 gauge pump. It has a full choke, which, like I say, has a little more effective range and an improved cylinder, but still, you want to take each firearm, go in the field, and shoot it to verify just exactly what your effective range is. This was the first semi-automatic gun I had. Now, I actually turkey hunted a lot with this, but it's a lot of your older firearms have got shiny surfaces. So Hunter Specialties has a sock. This is a very inexpensive thing you can put over any gun, and you cover it up, and it makes it not shiny, so it's not as effective, or you can't see it as well. What Hunter manufacturers have figured out is you can actually, the black synthetic is an awesome gun to be able to use for turkey hunting. It's not going to, the sun's not going to reflect off of it, and it's a lot less visible. And there's a lot of manufacturers that have black synthetic. Now, you have to go buy a new gun, but this is the pump. The one that I bow hunt now mostly, but when I do shotgun hunt, this is a camouflage 20 gauge. This will actually shoot 3.5 inch. There's 2 3/4, 3 and 3.5 inch size shells. All of them pattern differently. All of them shoot differently. And one of the things that's really cool about when we can actually have classes in person, we go out to Olson shooting range and we can have people come out and actually go out to the range and shoot their firearm with a specific ammo they're going to hunt with. Every specific ammo patterns differently. These are, I got, samples at 3.5 inch, 3 inch, 2 3/4. And over the years, I've tried lots of different stuff. For my Mossberg 935, you would think 3.5 inch shells, it's got a lot more BBs in it, more powder. You think it'll be more effective load to use for turkey hunting, but with that gun, it just doesn't work. It doesn't pattern very well at all. I found that for that gun, the 3 inch shell works way better for me. The only way you know that is you'll spend the effort and the time and the money to buy the rounds and go use the targets and figure out exactly how your firearm's going to pattern. It's the ethical thing to do. That way you know your effective range. Like I say, I'm going to be hunting in Nebraska later this year. I normally take my bow, but if I'm going to spend the money to go to Nebraska, I'm actually going to take my shotgun. And I picked up these shells. They're Winchester Supremes. They're turkey load. And I was planning on using these, but I went out this morning and found out that, it'll work great at 25 yards, but it's not going to work at 45 yards. So the only way you know that is if you go and spend the time and the effort to go pattern. The other thing that I was going to talk about is archery, which is actually my passion. I love the bow hunt. We could do a whole series thing just on bow hunting. Turkeys have an incredible sight, and mostly they pick up movement, which in order to draw a bow back, you're going to be moving. So you typically bow hunt out of a pop-up line. The other thing that's important about with archery is, I deer hunt also, and I really like a fixed broadhead when I'm deer hunting. I want to pass through shot for a deer. It's an ethical way to harvest that animal. When you're shooting turkeys, though, I prefer that arrow not to go through. I want the arrow to go in and do as much damage as possible and kill that bird when I can see it. So it's actually mechanical broadheads are preferred for me. That's my preference if I'm going to be hunting turkeys with a bow. So there's all kinds of different ones on the market. Do a little research. There's a bazillion YouTube videos and stuff on it. But typically it's something that's going to enter the animal and open up. And what that means is instead of the arrow going all the way through, it actually hangs up in the bird. And typically then it can't fly. It can't, if it runs off, it's going to get caught up in the timber, you're going to find it. So this is my setup. I use a PFC Firestorm light. I like it because it's got a short axle to axle. I'm shooting out of a blind. So I want a shorter bow. So I've got there's like everything else, there's a lot of different products on the market, but I like a short axle to axle instead of in the blind. And we'll get into it next week, but there's all kinds of different things that I typically do or try to do to bring the birds in close. Well, not taking measurements, is it? We got all kinds of different setups we're going to talk about for decoys. Some different ideas on how to get by as inexpensive as possible on decoys. That's pretty much kind of, I really tried to rush through it and actually went a little faster than I thought it would. But if you have any questions, feel free to send them in. You know, for those of us with NWTF, we're a volunteer organization. You know, we don't get anything out of this other than the satisfaction of helping other people enjoy the things that we enjoy. I love to be outside. I love the time that I spend in the timber. I love the time with my family and friends. And we want to share that. And we want more people to enjoy that. So I encourage you, any of you, like I say, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in and we'll answer your individual questions. If you want to get more involved in hunting, like I say, we've got the Connecting Individuals program that teaches people at any place they are within their experience. You know, we'll help you to know more about hunting all kinds of species, not just turkeys, but, you know, pheasant, dove, waterfowl, deer. Well, fishing too. It's all about being outside. So, sorry, Jamie, I didn't take up as much time as I
No,
thought.
you did great. You kept us on schedule, man. You get brownie points for that. But no, Matt, seriously, thank you for everything. You know, with your section in particular, there's so much about, you know, the equipment that you just kind of have to get out there and learn. I know for me, when it comes with clothing, I tend to be a cheapie, and I do my shopping at a big chain store that rhymes with Walmart. But anyway, just because it's inexpensive, and if I rip it or get it muddy, whatever, I'm not out a bunch of money. And I think that's a good place to start for most people. Just find inexpensive stuff and build your way up.
A big part about camo is I think the reason most of the manufacturers come up with different kinds of camo, because it's kind of like different colors for fishing lures. They're actually trying to attract you as a person as opposed to making you more effective in the woods. Anything that breaks up your outline is going to be effective for turkey hunting. You know, I love, you know, over the years I've heard Jim Coffey talk about when he first started turkey hunting, you couldn't find camo. So he actually busted up walnuts and stained his clothes and stuff to be more effective as camo in the woods. And it worked. And like I say, anything that's dark colored that is going to break up your outline is going to work fine. And it doesn't have to match. It can be the old school army looking camo or the latest and greatest, you know, Western desert camo or whatever. As long as it's breaking up your outline, it's going to work fine.
Yeah.
Just like say, like you said, go find what's cheap and what's on sale. That's how it gets you. If it gets you out in the woods, then it's going to work.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you all so much for tuning in. We had quite a good viewing here tonight. Big thanks to Jim and Dustin and Matt for your all's content, giving us plenty of information. But I'm going to echo what Matt said. If you all do have questions, go ahead and send them our way. You all should have gotten mine and some other information from the DNR when you went through the registration process. Feel free to reach out to us and email us if you've got questions this week. Early next week for you all that are on this one, you'll be getting an email probably from my inbox sometime Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning at the latest. That's going to have some of the links that were shared tonight in the chat. It's going to have videos, other items that have been shared / or represented or discussed at some point by somebody on the panel tonight. So we'll make sure we get you all that follow-up content as well as a post-event survey In order for us to continue to do these programs and make them better and improve upon them, we need your feedback. And so there'll be a short survey we'll ask you to fill out. And we'll get that, like I said, we'll get that out to you at the latest early next week. And then tune in next week. If you haven't signed up yet, there's still space available. You can go into our Iowa DNR page, Learn to Hunt, to find the event. Next week, we'll be covering calling. We'll be calling hunting strategies, kind of the down and dirty of how to get to your birds. And then I believe Jim's going to cover some field dressing, some prep for the freezer, and then I'm going to whip up the old famous deep fried turkey nuggets that I do for this class every year. So I'll be sharing a recipe for those as well for you all tuning in. So again, make sure if you haven't signed up for next week to do it. Send us any of your emails or questions. And again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you learned as much as I did. Have a good night, everybody.
Right on time.